Hi everyone, welcome to episode number 13 of the Build podcast, and today we'll be looking at RequireJS. Now, if you have ever coded in a HTML file with a lot of script tags at the bottom or at the top, then RequireJS might just be a solution to make our JavaScript files organized and neater. So what do I mean by that? Let's first visit the site for RequireJS. RequireJS, as it is written here, is a JavaScript file and module loader. Now, I just picked this up a few weeks ago, and while reading about RequireJS, I also came across this word AMD. Let's have a look at that also. So what is AMD? I have this very nice slide by John Han. And on slide number 4, he explains the concept of AMD very well and why is it needed. So as AMD is asynchronous module definition, asynchronous helps it to load faster because this is parallel loading. And at the same time, it is also modular in terms of components, and also it is well defined and standardized. And RequireJS takes some essence of AMD to make our JavaScript files a lot more organized. Now, what are we talking about? Let's look at an example that we went through a few episodes ago, and that is on space exploration. So I have fired up this site. This little page uses just 2 JavaScript files, one for the header and one for the slider, to make it responsive and scale across the different browser sizes. So notice that no matter what the browser size is, the slides and the header scales very well, and we are using JavaScript files. So let's briefly look at the code in index.html. As I pointed out earlier, if we are not using RequireJS or AMD modular JavaScript pattern, then we usually use a lot of script tags at the bottom. Over here, typically we are loading the jQuery file, and then we are loading the fit text and the slides file. And both the fit text and the slides file are dependent on the jQuery. So let's get started and see how RequireJS makes it a lot neater and easier. So for this, we will go to the website, and then we will come to the download link. By the way, the website is very well documented, and there are APIs and download buttons and even some plugins that I myself have yet to explore. So let's first go on and go to the download page. And from here, I will take the require.js, the minified version. Okay, so let me just copy it. And inside my folder structure, under JS folder, I'll create a new file. Let me paste this in, and I'll save it as require.js. Right. So there you go, we have require.js now. Now in our index.html, now I will go ahead and comment out the entire thing. The entire script tag. So there are virtually no script tags over here, and of course when we come back and we load this, it will no longer work. So notice that the header is not scaling anymore. Now before we go ahead and we do any more changes, firstly, it is a very good practice to load this file up using the web server that is inbuilt in Mac. To do that, firstly, I will just edit 2 files. One is the vhost file in Apache, and over here I will tell them where is the folder that I want to load, and preferably the name of the domain. So let me just do that. And I just told the vhost file to load the folder space exploration under sites, and I want the domain name to be space.localhost. Let me just save it. And the next file that I'm gonna also change is the hosts file, and let me just add in the domain name that I want, which is space.localhost in this case. So after I've saved it, let me now visit the browser and try to visit space.localhost. Right, so I can load up the page very well, so I can now quit it and just serve the page via the Apache web server. Now just a little bit info for those of us need a little bit of refresher or do not know. Under system preferences, under the folder sharing, if we check web sharing, it will load up the default inbuilt Apache web server in the Mac OS operating system. Alright, so after we have loaded that up, now let's go back to our index.html and add in the script tag. So in index.html, there are no script tags right now. So let me go ahead and comment this out. It's already commented, and I will go ahead and write the script here. Firstly, the source will always be require.js. So I will go inside the JS folder and then require.js. There is also an attribute called data main, and over here I will load in js/config. So config.js is the file that we will be creating next. So let me go ahead and create config.js. Alright, so let's go ahead and now define what are the modules we need, including the dependencies, and this is what I really like about require.js. So let's go ahead and define it. So require.config, and inside require.config we will have a base URL which is /js, and next we will also define the dependencies. So for DEPS we will say it is called main, and next we will also define the paths, and under the paths we have a few files. The first file is called jQuery, and this is taken from cdn.js. So let's go ahead and take the file path. So cdn.js, and I will search for jQuery, and I'll put this in. Once again, the .js is not required. The next file is fittext, and I'll give it the name fittext, and it the file path is plugins/fittext. So .js is not required. And lastly, it is slides plugins/slides. Right, now with the paths, we will now describe the shim. So what is the shim? Let's go back to the documentation for require.js. So over here it says that you can express the dependencies via the shim configuration. And over here they give an example of the shim configuration. So this is where we'll be explaining the dependencies. So how we do that is shim, and there's another JSON file format. So jQuery, and under here we will do exports, and then jQuery. So that's about jQuery, and then we will also have to add the two other files, which is fittext, and it has a dependency, and the dependency is jQuery. And next there is also the exports. So let me copy and paste this for the slides as well, which is very similar. Right, so we have described the shim, and lastly I will just say the wait seconds, like how many seconds to wait before it gives up calling all these scripts. Right, so that looks pretty okay. So from the index.html, it will be coming to this config file that we just created. Now this config file is also dependent on the main.js. So now let's go ahead and create main.js. And inside the main.js, we will now do require. And inside the require, we will be saying the names of all the modules that we'll be requiring. First is the jQuery, and then of course is the fittext, and lastly it is the slides. And next we will also define the function. And firstly it is the jQuery with the $sign, and then we have the fit text, and we have the slides. And inside the function, this is where we will be calling in the scripts for fit text and responsive slides. So let me go back to index.html. Over here, remember at first we were calling it in our index.html, but now we will come inside main.js and call fit text, same thing, and the same for responsive slides. Right, looks, if everything is fine, it should now work very seamlessly. So let's go back to our page and try to refresh it. Let's look at our inspect element. Right, there doesn't seem to be any error. And let me go ahead and resize the browser. Right, it is resizing. That means the JavaScript is definitely loaded. And if we go to our view page source, you will see that it is only loading in one script file with everything else not included. So let me just go ahead in the index.html and just delete away the entire part. Right, and let me reload it and reload it. Right, that's it. And the JavaScript reloads very well. And it is very neat. With just one script tag, we have defined the dependency, and we are also calling in the jQuery file as well as the two plugins. So it is a very neat way to create a lot of JavaScript files and also organize them properly. And lastly, the build link of the week goes to jqfundamentals.com. Over here, we have a Creative Commons totally open source book about so many chapters, like over 10 chapters with examples where we can learn about jQuery. So this book is created by Rebecca Murphy, rmurphy.com. So definitely read through this book. There are various methods and examples that she talks about, and definitely go to her blog, and she blogs mostly about JavaScript and a lot of new tips and tricks and our thoughts about development in general. So JQ Fundamental by Rebecca Murphy is the build link of this week. And for all other podcasts, for Build Podcast, visit build-podcast.com. And I have included the iTunes and GitHub and RSS, YouTube, and Vimeo links right at the left. So see you next week, and have fun doing RequireJS for any other times you're using JavaScript. Thank you and goodbye.